He's here. His immensity, the great gut, the fattest of all goblins, the greatest warlord of the Greenskins. Probably not according to Grimgore, but at least according to himself. Grom da Paunch, folks, and welcome to another cinematic campaign. This one's going to be in the style of Archaon and our Gorok campaign, where all the battles are post-recorded in a cinematic fashion. We cut out the turn-ins and anything else that is wasting your time just to bring you the best, or in this case, the fattest campaign. Yes, this is the Warlord Grom, and I'm going to take a little bit here from the Warhammer wiki just to make sure I get you a little bit of his lore. He's known more famously as Grom da Paunch or Grom the Fat of the Misty Mountain. He was not only the largest and most powerful goblin to have ever lived, but also among the greatest of Greenskin war bosses, being the only Greenskin warlord to have ever made a successful invasion of the distant lands of Ulthuan. Gobbos are cowardly and disloyal, but nothing stirs their wicked hearts like Grom, mightiest of goblin war bosses. Now, stories of Grom's greatness still command attention around any goblin camp, and if any shaman should conjure his superlative-sized image, even the most boisterous gobbo will behave with reverence. I'm going to read through a little bit more here, just to kind of give you all a background on Grom, and then I'll give you a summary of everything else I've learned, and kind of tell you how we're going to play this campaign. If you don't want to watch this part, feel free, skip ahead, but this is just me giving a little background on the lore and why and how we're going to play this one. In Grom's looming presence, goblins will stand up straight, they'll refrain from grumbling backtalk, and even limit the rampant nose picking. Those ultimate displays of respect are because to lowly goblins, Grom is a living god, the embodiment of everything they will never be: large, ferocious, and idolized. All war bosses are full of themselves and boastful, but once again, Grom displayed his epic proportions, not just his gut, folks. Here was a goblin from Backwards tribe, grown large and powerful, suddenly able to bully orcs and command as he saw fit. It's no wonder it went to his head. Soon after, he crushed an opposing leader beneath his bulk and added the night goblins of Thunder Mountain to his growing forces. Grom began to refer to himself in the third person. If they wanted to stay in his favor, Grom's followers had to use phrases such as "your immensity" when addressing him. Both Grom and his horde grew larger still. Folks, when we're going through this, if you'll have a request for Grom, you'll have to, in the comments, refer to him as your immensity, or the fattest, or Grom the Great, Grom the Fattest, the Gut. However, make sure you, approach him properly in the comments. We gotta have respect for him. Now, a little history on Grom. How did he get so big and fat? Apparently, he ate troll meat, which, because of its regenerative properties, can somewhat swell within as it tries to regrow. And he was able to eat the troll meat and somehow not explode, and this helped him grow in his size and immensity, and is also going to be somewhat represented in the game because of the cooking mechanic that Grom's Cauldron throws in. And ever since he was so big and fat, he tended to ride around on the chariot. He challenged all the orc war bosses around him. He was able to defeat them. He then took on the Stunties, drove them back into their keeps, and eventually spilled out into the lands of men, where the cowardly emperor at the time, which I believe was Dieter, would not come out to face him. He went all through the realms of men. I do believe maybe the Reichland survived, but he sacked pretty much everything else, and eventually he rolled through Middenland, pulled the roof off of the temple, and built the great chariot that you probably see him on here. Eventually, he made his way westward. Eventually, he made his way out through Marienburg, and there was a large naval battle because he had begun to build a fleet. His shaman, old Blacktooth, had told him that he needed to go across the ocean and invade Ulthuan. And so when old Blacktooth told him this, they cut down the huge forest, they built this fleet, they start sailing out the Reich, they stop for a big scrap at Marienburg. He does defeat them at Marienburg, but then there's a storm, and what he didn't lose in the battle, he lost a lot more, so his massive horde was downsized a bit, but then they passed west, and the elves looked on with stunned surprise as these greenskin shanty ships start to roll through the mist of Everest, which they thought were powerful enough to stop any magic. an invasion. They land, they begin to battle the elves, they raid everything around, and they start destroying the waystones, which is affecting the pull of the great vortex. And eventually, Grom's horde comes to Tor Evres, the ancient citadel, and invades it, and is actually in the process of pretty much destroying it when a great elven prince, Eltharion, shows up on his griffin Stormwing and manages to turn the tide of the battle. He cuts the head off old Blacktooth, which is Grom's shaman, and at that point, no one really knows what happens to Grom, supposedly. Did he fly off on the wyvern that the shaman was using? Did he run off and live in the hills? No one really knows, but he is back now in Mortal Empire, so there you go. That's a little background on Grom. So how are we going to play him? Well, based on the story here, we are definitely going to give him a goblin-centric army and focus all of our upgrades on the goblins. So that will be fun. Trolls, goblins, snotling wagons, anything goblin-focused, Ragnarok spiders. Could we maybe put something like the Crimson Killas in there eventually? Sure, we might do that, but this is mostly going to be a goblin army, and we're going to have some fun with that, okay? There's a lot of fun stuff we're going to do here. I think the trolls and all that stuff are very appropriate based on his background. So that's how Grom's army is going to play. As far as how we're going to recreate waagh, CA starts us in Bretonnia, which doesn't exactly fit with the lore that I read through, because there's not a lot of other greenskins around for us to pacify, but in keeping with that, when we run into another greenskin tribe, we're going to beat the crap out of them to show them that we are the biggest and the fattest. And we'll also be wrecking Bretonnia and eventually the Empire to kind of represent Grom's having ravaged the world of men before he sailed to Ulthuan, at which point we will sail to Ulthuan. Now, I know there's a part missing in there with the Stunties. We may dispatch an army later to kind of represent Grom's earlier wars against the Stunties, but they're not really in a great position for us to do that. We are playing on very hard, and it is a initial challenge of hard. Now, as far as the faction effects, he has his cauldron. He's looking for temperate island-type climates. I guess Grom really likes his weather nice. And the waagh has a chance to contain pump wagons in all of his armies. That's going to be really exciting. So looking forward to that. Obviously, the High Elves dislike him a great deal. And he gets a quicker global recruitment to kind of represent the fact that he drew together all these greenskin tribes in his Waughs of lore. So let's get this campaign started with Grom da Paunch and get the waagh going.
Grom da Paunch, O ye of the mighty gut, greatest of all goblins. Your waagh burgeons once more, but the boys' morale is low, and they will need reinvigorating. Fighting the pretentious Bretonians will likely improve their mood. Their lands surround you, but like all men of the old world, they are weak and will easily fall to your horde. Your real trophy lies across the ocean, where in the great city of Tor Evres, the Grim Warden undoubtedly awaits your return. When you are ready, make the crossing and show him that you will not be bested again. The High Elves may have driven you from Ulthuan's shores before, but you are not defeated. Your momentum gathers, mighty Goblin King. Soon, you shall become an unstoppable force once again.
The gut of Grom is always an unstoppable force. Freaking Chaos Advisor, get it right. We do have the Cauldron, which I mentioned, waagh and scrap, which I did show in some of my greenskin reworks. This is our new waagh bar up here. If you haven't seen it yet, when it fills up, we get a call to waagh. You pick a target. If you complete it, you get a sweet trophy here, and that trophy will give you special abilities for your armies as long as you hold on to it before you complete another waagh. This is the hunger levels here. Right now you can see we're starving Gobbo. Needs to sample some recipes to begin expanding his portly waistline. And that also gives him more hit points, I think, as we build up. So, here is the cauldron. All we have is some troll meat right now. We'll try and get some fighting, grab another ingredient, and start cooking. Because, boy, do we love to cook. Let's take a look here. The first mission is to loot and sack 4 settlements. And we do get to start with Da Fishy Tittlemuncha, which is probably the most amazing name I've ever seen in a Total War game. So CA, thank you. This might be the best moment in the history of Total War, and I'm being somewhat serious. Yes, eat rot flesh. Alright, here we go. So Grom da Paunch starts out with a Gobbo and Troll army, so this is perfect. This is right in the theme that it should be, and very exciting for us. I'm going to go ahead and build a pile of shiny stuff. Actually, I'm going to build this idols here so we can grow quicker, and then we'll build piles of shiny stuff everywhere we go, because we want a pile of shiny stuff the same size as the Grom's gut. Okay? It's got to be a big pile of shiny stuff. We're going to start off here by destroying Cassian with our Gobbo army, and we'll see the Great Gut himself taking on these filthy peasants. Cassian of Paravon had heard legends, nay rumors, near massive Orkow, that a great goblin king had risen and begun gathering a mighty waagh. The rumors were ignored. He didn't think that there was any merit to it, only scared peasants running down from the mountains. But now he stands on the battlefield, looking across, and he sees an immense being approaching in the distance. The banner on his chariot flapping in the wind, and his trolls rumbling forward, making a thunderous sound, and then a stench carried on the wind from a fishy troll. Cassian finds himself in battle with the waagh that he didn't think existed, and his peasants will be fighting for their dear lives. You can see that they were stupid enough to line up in some column formations because Grom outflanked them. These Gitz don't know how to run a proper scrap, and here comes the great Grom himself. He'll be swinging his axe right through these peasants, killing a great many. Fishy Tittlemuncha and the river troll hag, the river trolls that go along with the hag also crash into the peasants. The stone trolls not far behind. The Bretonnians will be paying a heavy price for not properly preparing for the waagh that Grom has brought. And the waagh that Grom has brought is significant. His axe, every time it swings, is simply chopping up his dinner for later. All these peasants will soon be in the cauldron. The goblins, of course, standing tall for their warlord, not afraid to fight, especially against these peasants. And then over here, the spiky rollers, tenderizing Grom's meal, flavoring it. The nice aromatic fungus as well. Little spore seasoning for the great Grom. The spiky rollers particularly good at tenderizing the meat for the cauldron. Cassian is fleeing from one side of the battlefield to the next, attempting to rally his poor Bretonnian peasants. But how can one run from such an immense warlord? His chariot pulled by the greatest wolves ever known to waagh. His axe strokes killing dozens of peasants. Cassian's forces heavily overmatched. You'll also notice the great Grom, his immensity, showing off in the middle of battle, and not even concerned about knocking around his own goblins. He is the greatest of them, and they will learn it. River trolls now vomiting all over the peasants as well. I think we need to catch up with Fishy Tittlemuncha, who's up here swinging the great sack of carrion. The stench, no doubt, will be on whoever it touches for years to come. No amount of bathing will save them from what Fishy Tittlemuncha is dealing out. And the last few standing peasants are learning the tale of Grom, a tale that they had heard of old, that came all the way from Ulthuan and Eltharion. The tales did not do justice to the great immensity of the warlord, though, and the Bretonnians found themselves soiled and scared, fleeing the battlefield in front of the great warlord. None will survive well, I say none will survive, not from this army at least. Others will be allowed to leave to tell the tale. Many will simply be thrown in the cauldron and stewed up into a great recipe for his immense greatness, Grom da Paunch.
Told you we'd win, boys.
And we did win, boys. That's why you follow the great gut, the Lord of Fatness, his great immensity, Grom da Paunch,
Bit scrawny, but they'll do. Grom da
has
Paunch.
eaten his first captives and won his first victory, leaving Canal open for the scrap here. And we're going to start things off with this inspiring presence, and then we're going to buff the Gobos in Grom's army, because it's going to be all about a goblin build, and it's going to be a lot of fun, folks. Going to be really cool goblin build. Speaking of, let's go into the research, where I think the first thing we want to do is this Gobby Gobos, again, giving less upkeep, more melee attack, leadership, and missile strength for all of our goblin units. Eventually, we'll have to unlock the sharper stabbers up here, which will unlock the scrap upgrades for our goblins. And you all will see as time goes on, we're gonna really have probably the coolest goblin army that has ever been in a Total War game up to this point. So, super excited. Let's go through our first turn in. I think I forgot to attack. Look at this, Blacktooth's Revenge. So we can get Blacktooth's head in a jar if we start the turn with at least 50 scrap, or at least we'll be heading towards it. And then we've been given a quest in order to get the Lucky Banner here, which is really awesome. Gives a huge melee attack and damage resistance save for Grom. Not to mention just kind of the standard stuff. There is going to be a really cool item. We need to get a Call to Waagh trophy. We do that by filling this up, calling a waagh, and then completing the waagh. I think we could have attacked Kinnell on the last turn. We could auto-resolve this, but De Great and De Fattest deserves some battle. So here we go. A few peasants survived from Cassion's army, returning to Kinnell to tell the story to their brothers, their pants soiled, tears streaming down their face, covered in a stench the likes of which really couldn't be described, telling stories of great trolls and an immense goblin king, the likes of which the peasants could hardly believe, but now as their own eyes tell them as they hide in the forest, cowering and, like their brothers, soiling themselves before a great battle begins. Their arrows are let fly, but arrows, it will take more than that. It will take more than that to stop the mighty goblins and the great, immense, the fattest, the Paunch, and his trolls and goblins. Hope y'all are enjoying this. Look at these sweet stone trolls. These guys look awesome. CA, please. More trolls. More trolls. More goblins. The Spiky Rollas is ready to go tenderize the next meal for their lord. And without any further ado, Grom and his wolves are going to crash right through these peasants. Right into their leaders, the foot squires. And the goblins, seeing their leader charge in, following the banner, and watching Niblet cheering them on. Niblet, of course, having survived being sat on by the great Grom. They expected him to just be a puddle of goo, but he actually survived. Really a rather impressive feat. The Spiky Rollas, the death magic, the goblins, the carnage. All of this, of course, will be filling Grom's cauldron with more man-flesh and horse meat. He'll be eating fine throughout the lands of Bretonnia. Peasants are a bit tough, but with enough stewing and possibly even chopping up some trees from Athel Loren to help with some slow cooking, the peasants will be pretty good eating. Gotta mix them in with some good shrooms and possibly some other vile ingredients. You see Fishy Tittlemuncha here. Gonna marinate some of these peasants with some vomit and get them ready for the cauldron. And of course, we never expected much from these peasants. Despite fighting for their land, they failed miserably.
Told you we'd win,
Did y'all enjoy that? The Fishy Tittlemuncha barfing all over those disgusting peasants. I mean, it's kind of like marinating them, right? For Grom's cauldron. I think it is.
Grom!
I think it's kind of like marinating them.
Getting
We're going to occupy. We've been issued this next quest here because we have over 50 scrap. We need to cook a recipe, and a random ingredient will be unlocked. Ooh, we got a new ingredient. And here's Blacktooth's conjuration. Summons a rogue idol. Oh! 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 How do I need this. Where is it? Oh, yes. We can now summon a rogue idol. Oh, thank you, Gork and Mork. Oh, this is great. This is fantastic, folks. We're going to build idols here, too, so we can get the growth going of the Horde.
Corpulent majesty.
He is copulent. Here's our first Dagabo upgrade. So we'll start making our Gabos better. And we're going to drop Soul Blight and then probably Doom and Darkness on the fishy Tittlemuncha. And let's get in and see what ingredient we were... Ooh, green spores. Growth and all... Regeneration for... Oh my gosh. Regenerating goblins. Shroom and awful sausage. Oh, this is delicious. Cook it up, boys.
Oh, 11s. Well, second 11s.
That's right, boys. We be cooking now. We've got our shroom and awful sausage. Oh, yeah. I love this. Cooking with Carthage. So, yeah. We've completed another quest, I think, here. Because we unlocked a recipe. We now have quite a lot of scrap. We need to get the research going to unlock the Gabo scrap upgrades, because we are certainly building up quite a bit of it. Plus, all of our goblins now are going to be regenerating. That is pretty absurd. Absurdly awesome. The great fat one is already providing for the hordes. Alright, we finished our tech research. I really want to get the sharper stabas unlocked, so let's start working on that. It's going to take 4 turns in total. And then there's this use 'em and abuse 'em that we want to unlock, as well as the Gabo crackdown. All of these things will be very important to making our goblin army live up to the greatness and the immensity of their boss. I'm just going to move forward, and we're going to get a raiding camp going. Replenish the waagh while picking up some extra teeth. And we're ready to end another one here. Take the fight to these gangly man creatures. Oh boy. Alright, we're gonna have to turn around. The hag merchant is here, so we can potentially go pick us up some new food. What do we get here? Ooh, we got some scrap by interacting with it. Oh my gosh, lizard legs? So we can buy some lizard legs. We can take the cooking challenge, but I don't really want to do that because I don't want to cook anything else right now because I got 13 more turns of this awful sausage. Random recipe? Nah, we don't want that either because we don't replace the current recipe. And we don't need to rob her at the moment. Let's buy the lizard legs. Oh yeah. Let's see what our lizard legs do. Oh my gosh, 15 armor for goblin cavalry and chariots and squig herds. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Okay, this Grom's Cauldron is amazing. We need to open a restaurant called Grom's Cauldron. I mean, seriously, this needs to be a thing. Games Workshop, CA, make this happen. I want to be eating at a fast food restaurant that's Grom themed, please. Look at this. They think they're going to stop the fat one by bringing me an army of fresh horse meat. I mean, we're obviously going to rot the horse meat before we eat it, but I mean, they're just feeding the paunch. Look at this. This ought to be fun. With the loss of many of their brothers, the remaining peasants of Paravan gathered all their steeds. Now, these weren't the best of steeds, a little bit old. You know, whatever they could bring. I'm surprised most of these peasants even have clothes at this point. And they brought them together for one mighty charge, perhaps thinking that this will be their moment to break the great invading throng, to waagh of the great fat warlord. And the peasants bravely charged into his goblins, but these goblins are not any goblins anymore. They're armored. They're regenerating. They're fueled by the magic. And Grom himself urging them on. You can see the great warlord here getting himself some horse meat. His gut only to grow larger as he gluts on the peasants of Bretonnia. The trolls driving away the horsemen, river trolls, their obnoxious stink, causing many of the peasants to vomit as they attempt to defend themselves. And speaking of trying to defend themselves, a great idol summoned, the revenge of old Blacktooth, smashing through more of the peasant Gitz, and proving that no one can truly stand in the way of his fatness. Grom calls all to his waagh, and all answer the call, including the rogue idols. See the damsel of Paravon here, the prophetess of heavens, being driven back. Grom's army was trouble enough for the damsel Paravon, but having the great idol summoned, just more pain to her problems. Just gonna let you all enjoy this great sight, because it is a glorious sight. The waagh is here, and it isn't gonna stop. It will keep rolling. The immense weight and the momentum due to its great goblin king. There will certainly be tales of these savage defeats making their way to the courts of Coron, to the king. Well, now the boys' bellies is gonna be full of Orson Rider stew. We're in pretty good shape. Well, Grom has picked up a Tormentor sword as well. It's just going to get even better for the greatest and the fattest. I'm gonna push him forward, go into a raiding camp, which I believe gives me access to recruitment. These boys isn't welcome, but we'll pick up some more gobos, some fine gobos for our army, and all of them are going to be replenishing, and now they get an extra 4 melee attack, 6 defense, extra missile strength, and ammunition. So our gobos is going to be renowned as far as everybody's concerned. Let's get a Doom and Darkness. That could be helpful for breaking up these peasant armies even quicker than usual. And we are now good to end a turn. Yeah, the whole world is going to be Grom's, actually. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some more gobos and another archer, just so we got the numbers here to properly represent a horde the size of its great warlord. Alright, we've finished the Sharper Stabas research, so we can now do scrap upgrades on hollow goblins. And we're going to go to use them and abuse them over the next couple of turns. And here's all of our scrap now ready. Now for my standard goblins, I'm going to just throw the scrap armor on them. 25 armor is going to be nuts. Plus, I think we pick up even more through some traits. So we'll be having a high armor goblin line just to kind of hold. And eventually, when we can recruit night goblins and skulkers, we'll put weapon type upgrades on them and use them to hit the flanks. So we'll kind of have a specialized army for the Paunch here. But these guys will pack the armor in the middle, so we're going to spend our unit upgrades on them. Let's get a few of my archers upgraded, though. As far as the archers, we can give them ammo skin sacks, but if we get heavy ammo, it adds 400% armor piercing. They only have 1 to begin with, but 5 armor piercing on a cheap goblin archer is actually pretty impressive, and will, again, kind of match the immensity of their warlord. So, pretty excited. Let's get full armor upgrades. Actually, I'm going to stop with probably 6 standard goblins with the upgrades, because eventually I'm going to dump these guys and bring in some different goblin gits. We can either go with chariot armor or jagged weapons here. I'm going to go with jagged weapons on the spiky roller pump wagon. This will help it cut through infantry more efficiently, and it's already dropping their armor. So I would say that our army is in a proper position for a good scrap. We'll build some equipment for sieging this disgusting man city. Hopefully they'll come out and fight us so that we can get a proper scrap going. But we'll see whether the manlings have enough confidence to do such a thing. We're definitely going to be building a troll cave here. And then we'll also probably put in a... I'm going to go ahead and leave the troll cave. We're going to put in a pile of shiny stuff for now, just to get some extra cash going. And then we're going to build the brawling ground so we can get access to skulkers and the totem pole. Oh, yeah. The man Gitz is coming out to fight us. It's time for a scrap, boys. Having narrowly survived his first battle with the Paunch, Cassian regrouped a mighty host of peasants and their horsemen. Their horsemen worry that they will be just like their comrades before, soon to be food for the mighty Goblin King, who, almost like a troll, has swept through the lands, collecting up everything to be thrown into the cauldron and cooked into his disgusting recipes, only fueling his growth and the growth of his waagh along with it. We'll see whether Cassian's armies can stand against the waagh, or whether the great Goblin King will once again push through and be able to make his way into the great city of Paravan and begin the ultimate fall of the realms of men at the hands of the waagh. Let you all enjoy some cinematic ones here. It's not a whole lot else to commentate, as we have pretty much seen how Grom's waagh has been interacting with the peasants. I'll just catch you as many cinematic views as we can. Essentially, the Bretonnian horsemen are going to charge us from the front, and then their reinforcements from the settlement will make their way in. We'll see how it goes. Things get started as Fishy, Tittlemuncha, and her river trolls and spiky rollers drive out some initial horsemen, while the second wave makes its way forward. The goblins, now well armored, stand up well to the charges of the Bretonnians. Their sharp sticks do little damage through the scrap armor that the boys picked up and fashioned for themselves. Some Grail Knights do attack through the center towards Fishy, but she has them held, and her trolls are there to assist her. You can see the great Paunch himself and Niblet cheering him on. They cut through many a horseman in the middle. Meanwhile, the Bretonnian horsemen attempt to gain the flanks, but the newly and heavily armed goblin archers are raining death upon their knights of the realm, and even the nobles of Bretonnia seem to have little chance of standing against the might of the waagh. And as the reinforcements approach, they're going to be met by a surprise. The stones from the ground coming to life as a rogue idol steps forward and body slams the retreating horsemen and comes to meet the inbound foot squires who thought that they would come to reinforce and perhaps help turn the tide of the battle. A mighty clap of his hands as peasants fall apart everywhere. Good news for Groms is this will be all kinds of little bits, and those little bits add a lot of flavor. He's hungry. He's always hungry. insatiably hungry. I think you all can see where this battle is headed. The heavy shot from the goblins is pouring in. The trolls are running about, destroying the remaining cavalry. And much like a foot of Gork himself, the rogue idol is stomping his way through the reinforcements. Just to give you an idea, he's already racked up 70 kills on just a summoned unit. He's almost like the Macho Man Randy Savage with the sweet wrestling moves he has as well. This Bretonnian blob is being absolutely gored here by Grom, who's also picked up a huge number of kills. And Cassian finds himself facing down Fishy Tittlemuncha, who intends to smack him with the carrion bag, and oh, what a hit. You could hear that one too. Cassian once again hopes to flee the battlefield, but he will never wash the stink out of his clothes from that one. Took a direct hit from Tittlemuncha's bag of snacks there. There is no holy water from any of the damsels of Bretonnia that can clean off that smell. The men of Bretonnia falter, and Paravon is ripe with fear and ready for the taking. These Gitz wouldn't know a scrap if they got into one like they did here. They's just going in the pot now. So, Grom's cauldron will surely be full of man flesh tonight. Meat is back on the menu. I mean, still had all that horse meat. I mean, we're going to be eating good. We're going to be eating real good. Let's actually throw that there. So we've made it here, the turn in. We've got a stinky tree following us around. You know, he would make good fuel for the cauldron, should need be. Can chop him up and use him to cook. I'm going to stick another point into Doom and Darkness so we can do the effect area, and then we need to get life leeching.
Hack 'em to pieces.
Still giving these Gitz a pretty good chance of winning here, which is kind of hilarious. Let's continue the siege until the Great Warlord, his immensity, finishes some of the weapons of war. And let's go to abuse them here, make our goblins even better. So we're getting more melee attack, charge bonus, armor, missile strength. Yeah, it's gonna be good, folks.
Boys, bring Grom's chopper. That Gitz here.
And that Git thinks I'm gonna give him a peace treaty. Oh, there'll be pieces of him. Pieces of him in the cauldron. Aye, we ready to abuse him, boys? We've got our siege equipment. Still be cheating to Fat One, saying that he can't win this siege. We'll see. We'll see who'll be winning any sieges. These peasants and their walls can't resist Grom da Paunch. Let's do a gobbo crackdown.
Another day, another triumph. Got it?
I'm gonna go with Angry Gods here so we can get some extra growth. Unless that god is Gork or Mork, then we're really not concerned about their anger. We're gonna burn through one more turn here and attempt to get ourselves a little more siege equipment.
You smell like bilge water, dead Git.
Now that is the type of diplomacy talk I like. Yeah, you dead Git. Let's get this bit of extra leadership here.
Gonna squish 'em.
We've got 2 towers. I don't really understand what is still putting anything in favor of Paravon here, so let's destroy these man Gits and prove that the great immensity of Grom is second to none. There were few survivors. Cassian, still reeking of troll, made his way back to Paravon and gathered what defenders he could, and he hides in the center of town as his troops garrison the walls. It's understandable why he hides at this point, because outside the walls, a great sound can be heard, the thundering of Grom's chariot, and the smell of his trolls already wafting on the wind. let you all enjoy some cinematic goodness here. With Cassian having taken a beating, his paladin stands in his place to defend the walls against Grom's waagh. Those walls will be hit by towers, and the gates attacked by trolls. Enjoy the scene. Do remember, these are no standard goblins. These goblins have over 50 armor and regenerate. They're angry, they're well fed, and they're well led. The Bretonnians are going to have a real scrap on their hands here, and the boys will no doubt be happy to pick up some more scrap so that eventually we can get some nice upgrades for the trolls and the rest of the army here, and the skulkers and other units that will be coming in to join them. This is one of those few times where goblins, even when outnumbered, will stand. The immensity of their warlord driving their confidence, and well it should. Well it should. The gate is shattered, and the Bretonnians flee in the face of what enters. And who wouldn't? The ungodly smell of the trolls and fishy, and Grom himself as they roll through. Yes, Cassian's going to get one last visit from the Paunch. And this time he will certainly become food. His forces are well overmatched and not able to hold his archers, being shot by the heavy goblin arrows. Some defense from the walls. Utterly fearless, Grom charges in. You can see Cassian hoping to stop him. Grom's great axe flying, and to add insult to injury, Cassian faced with another rogue idol right behind him. So was the end of Cassian and the forces of Paravan. It is now taken by the waagh, and I need you all to get in the comments and tell me the new name of the city of Paravan now that it's under new leadership. When that sack hits, it just sounds absolutely terrible. Gosh. I love it. I really do. It's too much fun.
Goblin King never loses.
The filthy peasants never had a chance. That auto-resolve? Yeah. Bunch of Gitz.
Tough 'em out.
Thanks for the settlement, boys. The horde is eating good. We've been replenishing with a great recipe cooked up by the chef-in-chief, his immensity, Grom da Fat One. Let's go ahead and upgrade Massive Orcal. And this has been a good episode. Hopefully you all are getting into the spirit here. Getting into the spirit. The horde is growing, and the waagh will be great. It's actually building up. In our next episode, we should be able to declare a waagh. I want you all to go down in the comments now and tell his immensity where his waagh should be targeted. Castle Carcassonne, or we could go over here to Castle Baston. I don't know. You all help me pick. Go tell his immensity where the waagh should be targeted. Tell me why. I'll pick someone's comment. You all can, of course, upvote comments if you want to have more. But look at this, though, right here. Down to size. Our gobos are now going to have a bonus versus large and 6 extra melee attack. It's getting nasty. Our Gabos is going to be nasty, and they will fear the Gabos, the world around, and fear the greatest of Gabos, his immensity, Grom da Paunch. See you all in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave your comments. Tell me what other things you think we should be doing. I will be reading it. I'll do my best to integrate it. HeirofCarthage, signing out.